Happy St. Patty's Day. Hey, check this out, by the way. Huh? You're very welcome. Karen, this isn't all I've done for you. We don't have a long enough day, Tom, for me to list the blessings that I've given to you. But I had a momentous moment this week. I realized that I am following in the pattern of my father, Norman, and this not in a good way. I realized I could no longer see the audience, so my daughter coaxed me into going to have my eyebrows done. Every time you think life will not get more humiliating, there's another thing out there, people, to bring you lower than you are today. And of course, my daughter thought this was the funniest thing in the world. And she said, Dad, you have to make sure you ask her if she's ever seen worse eyebrows. And so, of course, loving humiliation, I asked her. And she said, these are the longest eyebrows I've ever seen in my life. Now, to be fair, she was a young woman. So it's not like she had years and years and years to measure this. But so I can see you. So somebody come up to me today and at least tell me how lovely my eyebrows are. I really just need one compliment from all of you. Thanks a ton to Brian and Jerry for handling the pulpit the last 4 weeks. My wife and I were up in Tahoe for an extended period of time. And we have 3 weeks left in this study in Exodus that we've been doing. It's really a study out of the Exodus story rather than simply telling the whole story. And in 2 weeks on Easter, I'll be going back to look at the 3 signs that were given before the plagues. Which will be, I think, fun and interesting. And then next week, I want to do something a little different. I just want to take a practical look at this idea of what God's name is, that his name is Yahweh. What does this mean practically in our life? How do we kind of work this through? And in this study, we've been really trying to explore the significance of Moses' 2 questions. Who am I? Who are you, God? Remember, we are originated from the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And much like our earthly parents and legacy, both shape who we are and tell us who we are. For some of us, some legacy and shape we would just soon forget. And for others of us, like myself, a deep legacy that you want to entrench into your heart and your mind. And remember, we will never know who we are until we know who he is. See, this is why when Moses asked God, who am I? God said, I'll be with you. It sounds like an odd answer. And if it's still an odd answer to you, it's because you don't understand the answer. And to his second question, who are you then, God? He said, I am Yahweh. I am the always intimate, empathetic, creator parent. And to continue this theme, I want to explore this morning a concept that runs all over the Old Testament, and it actually runs throughout the New Testament, but it is actually forged in the Exodus story. And it's the idea of what it means to be the firstborn. Keeping with our theme of not being super linear, we're going to go back to the introduction to this early story in the Exodus. And it gets introduced to us, this idea of being the firstborn, in a strange way, in my opinion. I want you to listen to what God says at the very beginning of this story, shortly after the introduction and meeting with Yahweh at the burning bush, and prior to any sign from God and any performing of these plagues. We read this in Exodus 4:22. Then Moses, you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh, Israel is my firstborn son. And I say to you, let my son go that he may serve me. If you refuse to let him go, behold, I will kill your firstborn son. Before the story even has legs, before it has a chance to begin, we have Israel being called Yahweh's firstborn. And some Bibles even translate this as his firstborn nation. And this to me seems a bit strange on the surface. Abraham, the first Israelite, doesn't come along in the story of the Bible for 2,000 years in the book of Genesis. And by the way, God created everybody, including all of the people that existed before Abraham for those 2,000 years. How then is Israel the firstborn of God? And why make a big deal of this to kick off the entire Exodus story? And the story not only starts this way, the story actually ends with God killing Egypt's firstborn. 3 signs and 10 plagues, and God holds seemingly the most significant for last, as it has everything to do with being the firstborn. And Pesach, the Passover festival, the festival that was inaugurated over the Exodus story, its whole roots are in the idea of being the firstborn. Every firstborn male fasts the day before the Passover. And when they are finally out of Egypt, the firstborn thing just keeps coming up over and over. Israel finally gets out, they're free, and God sits them down to give them the law. And these people aren't even in the promised land, and they're at the foot of Sinai, and yet the story is far from complete. It seems to me almost anticlimactic after the hustle and bustle of all the plagues and the parting of the sea and running out into the desert, and now God sits them down for the giving of the law through Moses. And within those laws, there are even seemingly less climactic laws about firstborns. The firstborn children are supposed to be redeemed. It says this in Exodus 22. Firstborn animals are also supposed to be sacrificed. Exodus 22:30. You shall do the same with your oxen and your sheep, the firstborn of them. 7 days it shall be with its mother, and on the 8th day you shall give it to me. There's even a special procedure, by the way, on what to do with every firstborn donkey. Do we need this, by the way? Exodus 34, all that open the womb are mine, all your male livestock, the firstborn of cow, the firstborn of sheep, the firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and now you shall appear before me never empty-handed. These come right after the firstborn plague with the Egyptians. This is not a coincidence. Exodus 13:15. For when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, Yahweh killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of animals. Therefore, I sacrifice to Yahweh all the males that first opened the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. If you were God, by the way, you are not, but let's pretend for a moment. If you're God, how would you commemorate the Exodus? If you got to name the Exodus and the festival, what would you call it? Maybe freedom, right? There's a good one. We could call it the Let My People Go festival. There's all kinds of things, but he doesn't do that. He asks his people to commemorate the plague of the firstborn above all of the other massive miraculous signs by inaugurating this Passover festival. Why? Why is the firstborn thing such a big deal to God, and why is it such a big deal in the story? Well, let's try and do this by answering 3 questions. First of all, what does it mean to be the firstborn? Second of all, does Jesus do anything with this idea of firstborn? Does he carry it forward? And then finally, who cares? What does it mean to us? So first of all, what does this mean? What is a firstborn? Well, this could be a huge time-consuming thing. For simplicity's sake, I want to try to just boil this down to 2 things, 2 ideas that really come out of what it means to be the firstborn. First of all, it's about rights. It's about the firstborn rights. We typically say the firstborn gets a double portion, but it is way, way bigger than that. The firstborn is the principal heir. They're the successor to the father and his father's house and everything that goes with it. Home, livelihood, money, his entire estate really. More than that even, he becomes the head of the family. He is also the first to open, by the way, his mother's womb. So why is this important? Because this idea of firstborn is about, it's stressing the relationship that the person has with their parents. There's even a provision in the Torah, in Deuteronomy 21. There's a situation where it says this in the Torah. I'll tell you what, let's say there's a man and he marries 2 wives. He doesn't authorize the man to do this. He says, let's just say a guy takes 2 wives. And he loves one wife, but he doesn't love the other wife. Everybody following this in the Torah? Okay, but also let's say the unloved wife has the first kid. That kid's the firstborn. That male son is the firstborn son. But the father is not going to treat that son well because he's born of an unloved wife. So the Torah says that son of the unloved wife gets the double portion than any of the other children. This is how far the story goes to stress this idea of firstborn. So first of all, the firstborn has the full rights of his parents, particularly his dad. The second thing that goes along with this, it's the idea of legacy or passing down legacy. Practically speaking, this is a Captain Obvious comment, but the firstborn is the closest in age to both the parents and the other children. He is, of course, closer in age to his parents because he's the oldest, but he's also much closer to the kid's age than his parents. Right? He is the go-between between parent and children. And because of that, he is in the best position to take the parents' values and share them with the next generation. He carries his parents' legacy. We have now 4 kids grandkids under the age of 4, and now a 5th on the way, by the way. Yes, I keep saying this. They're trying to kill us, and it's working. And the best I have is to trim my eyebrows. But anyway, back to the story. We have 4 grandkids. Bodie is the oldest. He's almost 4. April 2nd, I think, is his birthday. I'm really terrible at this. But he's 4. Bodie, at 4, knows he's the firstborn. He knows he's the oldest grandchild. He has this sense about himself that he carries something that the others do not. When my son's son was born, Bodie is my daughter's son, and then they had Parker, and then little Shane was born. Bodie nicknamed him Baby Shane. And I said, wouldn't it be funny when they're in high school, he sees him, he's a sophomore, Baby Shane, how you doing? This is going to catch on like wildfire. The problem is there's another baby now. So now we have to drop the baby name, but to Bodie, they're babies. They're all babies. He's the firstborn. And we know what firstborns are like. How many of you in this room are firstborns? Raise your hand high. Okay, let's just do a little object lesson. How many of you have read The Birth Order by Kevin Lehman? Just a couple of you. Raise your hand. Let me see that again. People, we need to read more. My, that's terrible. It's a fascinating book. It's called The Birth Order, and it describes your place in the birth order. And then if there's 2 kids, and then there's a big gap, that one becomes almost like a firstborn. It goes on and on. We know what firstborns can be like, and this book describes that. Oftentimes, firstborns are very adult-like. Because why? They hang around adults before the other children come along. And, we had dinner at the Smiths a couple months ago. They have 3 kids, and we were there with the Abbotts. So 6 adults, and who sat with us? The firstborn. 14 years old, and she wanted to be with the adults, right? The son was off playing with another boy. Giselle was screwing around on the lawn, and the firstborn was having an adult-like conversation. They can also be overly responsible. They can be leaders. They're very much rule followers, right? People pleasers, structured. My daughter she's the firstborn in our family. She was such a people pleaser and such a perfectionist. I remember she was in like second grade, and she was all stressed out. She was all stressed out, and she was always stressed out, but she was really stressed out about school. She went to Santa Ramon Valley Christian Academy, and we said, what is the problem? She said, I still have not gotten a card pulled, and I'm so nervous I'm going to do something wrong and get a card pulled. So I slapped a $20 bill down on the table. I said, $20 if you do something naughty in class and get a card pulled. She looked at me, she goes, what kind of parent tells their child, she's in second grade, what kind of lousy parenting is this? My wife was like, $20, we'll give you more if you can do it twice. A few days later, Kelly comes home, she goes, you won't believe it. We said, what? She goes, I got a card pulled. We said, great, there's $20. Again, she said, you're the worst parents I've ever seen in my life. And she said, now here's the problem. There may be a caveat here. I may not deserve the $20. We said, this is firstborn language. We said, why? She goes, because it was actually the kid next to me that was talking and the teacher thought it was me. We said, you know what? You still get credit. We want to celebrate your naughtiness in this family. It was fantastic. This is what firstborns are like. Now, it should be noted, by the way, that the one to continue the legacy is not always the oldest child. Isaac carried on Abraham's legacy, not Ishmael. Jacob carried on Isaac's legacy, not Esau. Joseph, of all the brothers, Joseph got the multicolored coat. His father, Jacob, treated him as the firstborn in the family, even though he was like number 12. Reuben was the actual firstborn. The firstborn is more of a construct in the Bible than an age thing. It's all about being the one that chooses to carry his father's legacy. The firstborn, again, is the go-between to pass the legacy of the parents down to the next generation. Remember what the Exodus was about. It wasn't just getting Israel out of Egypt. That is, of course, significant, but rather to teach them, to teach us his name. His name is Yahweh. He is the always empathetic dad. And his name means legacy because his name represents who he is, what he is like, what he cares about, what he does, what's important to him. So this is a big deal. The full rights of the parents and the one to carry forward the legacy and wishes of the parent. And if you know your Bible, there are stories all over, particularly the Old Testament, about the weight that the firstborn right carries on that person. And I think we get so focused on what we don't like about these stories, we kind of tend to miss the actual point of the stories. Let me pick just two very quickly. We have the story of Jacob and Esau. We know this story. They were basically twins, and Esau came out first. He had the firstborn rights. And as he got a little bit older, like teenager age, he didn't really care about it. He traded his birthright for a lunch. And later on, when his father is going to die, Jacob's going to die, he tells Esau, I want to bless you as my son. You're a hunter. Go out and hunt, bring me back the kill, prepare it, and then feed me, and then before I die, I'm going to bless you. Well, the mom favored Jacob. She favors, Jacob. So she tricks her husband, and he basically gives the blessing to the younger son. And Esau is so torqued over this, and Jacob has to run away, and it's a long story. The second story is Joseph. Like I mentioned, he is 12th in line, but he's favored by his father. He carries the idea of the firstborn in this story, right? And then there's this weird story at the end of his dad, Jacob's life, where Jacob says, bring all the sons in. And he brings them all in, and he blesses each one before his deathbed. And then he tells Joseph, because he treats him like the firstborn, bring your two sons in, and I will double bless. I will bless your two sons. And then he does this even crazier thing. He crosses his hands and he blesses them in the wrong order. It's this weird thing that's just emphasizing to us the significance. And in these stories, we tend to focus so much on what we don't like, the trickery, the uncaring attitudes of, but what these stories are actually supposed to say to us is, look how significant a thing this is. This firstborn thing carries weight. They took it incredibly seriously. They valued the rights of their dad, and also they desired deeply to carry on what was important to their father. That is why, by the way, we have such a strong reaction to Esau. He did not give two licks about his family name. He traded his family legacy name away for a bowl of porridge. That's why Joseph's brothers, by the way, were so angry. Why does this guy get the coat? Why does this guy get the father's special standing? They were so mad, they sold him off to slavery. That's how significant this thing is. So, if it's this important, shouldn't we see this in the New Testament? Shouldn't we see this with Jesus? A couple years ago, we did a study through the letter of Paul to the Colossian church, and it's on the website if you want to go and listen to it. And the first chapter contains this insanely beautiful poem. We don't really know it's a poem because we don't see the language, the original language, but it's a poem, and it's all about Jesus. And there's 4 parts to it. Listen to how the poem starts in Colossians 1:15. He, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Here we have the poem, the greatest poem, in my opinion, written about Jesus. And the first thing it says is, he's the firstborn of all creation. Now, this is kind of a strange statement again. What does this mean? And why is this important? This idea of being the firstborn of all creation. The idea is that Jesus is supreme in all creation. You see, when the lavish and generous beauty of the world just takes your breath away, it is like that because Jesus created it. But see, creation is not just a reflection of some ability that he has. It is actually a reflection of him. It expresses him. And notice it doesn't say Jesus is the first thing God created. It says he was the firstborn of creation. The better translation, I think, is that Jesus is the one who is first over creation. You see, it goes on to say in this poem later that he created everything, so he could not have had a beginning. Anything that has a beginning, he created. Therefore, he was not created and didn't have a beginning. Jesus is the life giver of everything. Everything that is not the creator, everything that is not the creator is created. Everything you know, everything you see, even what exists that you cannot see, he originated it. As a result, the Son rules the entire created world as its creator. He has, by our earlier definition, all of the rights of his Father. And I know what some of you are thinking, but what about Satan? Satan is the dark ruler of this world, but Jesus ushered in the kingdom of the Trinity when he came, here and now. It is his creation. Colossians 1:15 again, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Not will be supreme over creation, he is supreme over all of creation. Jesus holds supreme rank and virtue of his eternal pre-existence. Look back at the poem structure again. The first section is about creation. The fourth section, the last section, is all about new creation. This is what the poem goes on to say a few verses later in 18. And he, Jesus, is the head of the body, the church. He's the beginning, the firstborn, there's our word again, from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. See, that's why section 1 starts and says he's the firstborn of all creation. And section 4 says that Jesus is the firstborn from the dead. He's the first of the new creation. He's the second Adam, the Bible would say. Jesus is the first of the resurrection. Well, why is this important? Because the same Jesus that redeemed you and saved you and rescued you, if you have believed on his name, is the same Jesus that created you and everything else to begin with. Redemption is not some invasion from an alien force called Jesus. The Lord of all, Jesus, has come to claim his rightful possession. And his rightful possession is you. Jesus originated you. The Father is the architect in the Bible. The Father conceived of you. And Jesus, he's the contractor. Jesus conceived you. Jesus created you. And when Jesus' beautiful, perfect work of creation was spoiled by sin and the displacement of God, it still belonged to Jesus. Everything we know of is his. Jesus is firstborn. He carries his Father's full rights. Don't confuse someone pulling off darkness like Satan with Jesus not being the supreme one. Remember what he said to Pontius Pilate before his death. The man with all the control, the sovereign over Israel. And Jesus looked at him and said, you would have no authority over me unless it had been given to you by my Father. Jesus is creation's firstborn son. He holds the full rights of his Father in heaven. And Jesus wants his Father's legacy, his name, Yahweh, the always intimate parent, to be known throughout the world. In the last moments of Jesus' presence on earth, at the end of Matthew, he makes it clear that all authority has been handed to him by his Father. Matthew 28, and Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. The Father, remember, hands the scepter to him to complete the restoration of life. Jesus receives his Father's authority. He has his Father's firstborn rights, and he is going to carry his Father's legacy forward. Every knee will bow before creation's supreme one. Colossians 2. Jesus holds firstborn rights. Jesus makes the Trinity known. His glory, hear this, is made known in the fullness of the cross. We study this when we looked at John. Do you remember what Jesus said? You want to see my glory? And you're thinking, do I want to see your glory? Haven't we already seen it? You made the whole world. You unleashed 3 signs and 10 plagues. You parted the sea. Haven't we seen your glory? He goes, nope. I watched you heal thousands of people, Jesus. Haven't we seen your glory? He goes, nope. You know what Jesus said? But now you will see it. Now I will make my Father obvious to you. I will die, and you will see what we are like, Father, Son, and Spirit. This is the glory of the name of God, Yahweh. In utter humility and servanthood, he makes God make sense. So what? What does this mean to us? This idea of firstborn. It's such a big idea in the Old Testament. People killed each other over it. And Jesus goes on to tell us, I'm actually the firstborn of all creation. And I'm the first of the resurrection. I'm the supreme one. Well, the answer to us should be rather obvious. We just sang about it for about a half an hour. In John 1:12, it says this, but to all who did receive Jesus, who believed in his name, he gave the right to be called children of God. You know what this is? This is firstborn language. You and I, if we have believed in his name, that he is Yahweh, your creator parent, he gives the right to be called his. He gives the right to be called his firstborn. So let's turn back to our 2 things, because this is what it means for us. First of all, we also now share in the Father's rights. We have rights as followers of Jesus. We are now God's fully adopted sons and daughters. We are now royal priests. We have the Spirit of God himself dwelling within us if we have bowed our knee to Jesus once we give our lives to him. We can come before him. We can look him in the eye. We can pour our heart out to him with no fear. We have firstborn rights of privilege and status and name and security and standing. We belong at his table. We are not, by the way, Jesus. We are under his authority, and we carry his name and legacy. We have no power on our own. This is so critical. We have a relationship. I do not have power. I know God. Amen? This is what I have. I have position in the family of God because we are in the firstborn son and daughter position. No Christian is a secondborn daughter or son. Our privileges are the privileges of Jesus. Raise your hand. I started this sermon a little bit ago. Raise your hand if you're the firstborn in your family. High. Raise it high. Hold it there. Now the rest of you, raise your hand. You are all firstborn children of the Most High God. There are no second-class sons or daughters in God's kingdom. I know what we think. I know how frail our minds are. We think, oh my gosh, God seems to answer that person's prayer, not mine. You know what you're saying? I'm a second-class daughter. I'm a second-class son. I don't feel the love of God on me like you two. You know what you're saying? You're a second-class daughter and you're a second-class son. You are not. You are a firstborn of God himself. This is why Paul, by the way, the Corinthian church in 1 Corinthians was a nightmare. These Christians were doing things that I wouldn't even want to say up here. And Paul had to write a letter to straighten them out. They were so horrible in their lifestyle. And yet, even then, Paul said, Corinthians, you will reign with Messiah because where Jesus is and what he is, you share in. He said this to the Corinthians. Jesus holds the firstborn of creation rights, and he gladly includes us in that. Romans 8:29, for those whom he foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And that leads us to the second piece of being Jesus' firstborn. We now have the honor and the dignity and the privilege of carrying on his legacy. If a firstborn carries his father's values, his legacy to the next generation, then God's firstborn is meant to carry God's value and legacy to the next generation. Everything we have is from God. His name is Yahweh, the always intimate dad. As firstborn, our desire should be to make that name known. We are the go-between. We are the firstborn between parent and the world. And like Jesus, we work under the power of his Spirit through the direction of the Father. John 20:21, Jesus said to them, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even I, so I am sending you. And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, receive the Holy Spirit. Jesus breathed on them. This is shades of Genesis 2 when God breathed on Adam and Eve and humanity. We are then launched into his ministry, participating with him to eradicate darkness. We are not sent out to eradicate darkness. He says, I send you out and I breathe on you my Spirit. We go with God to eradicate darkness alongside of him. We are his firstborn. We carry his legacy of love and forgiveness and mercy and graciousness and service and an others-oriented, humble life to this dying world. And like Jesus, with the rights of his name, we now do what he did. We lay our rights down gladly. for somebody else. Isn't that crazy? Jesus had the rights, the full rights of his Father. And you know what he said? I'm secure, so I will gladly give up my rights to save you. And this is what we're able to do now because we're so secure. We are here to wash others' feet in a way that reminds others of the actual nature of God. We belong, as I said, at his table. We carry his name, the always, upon us as his firstborn. We carry forward what matters to him, making his real name obvious. Why does Jesus commemorate the laws by making laws about the firstborn? Because it's supposed to remind us that he is Yahweh, the real parent. Why does God commemorate the entire Exodus story by naming it after the firstborn, that's the firstborn kids that died? Because it reminds us he is Yahweh, the real parent. Yahweh wants people that want to be his firstborn. We are the great Behor. We are the firstborn. We care for, we feed, we protect, we lead as our dad does as the firstborn, loving others in a way that makes God obvious. We take up the legacy. We are the kingdom of priests for him. And this is only made possible because Jesus carries the firstborn rights as the first of creation, and he carries the firstborn of the new creation because he raised from the dead. We're going to move into a time of communion. And as we take communion, we're always thinking all kinds of things, but really the body and blood, they're there to remind us of the cross. They are. The resurrection obviously comes shortly after, but we take the element of the bread to remind us the body of Christ was broken for us. He laid himself down for us. He showed us what he's really like. He gave us his glory in that moment. And the blood to wash us clean so that we know we belong to him. When we take the bread and we dip it in the cup, each of us this morning, I want you to whisper to yourself, firstborn child of God. Will you do that with me this morning? We're going to have two people standing here. We'll have two on this side. We'll have two on my right. Any two people that feel led to give the elements out will do that. But as you dip the bread, representing the body of Christ, into the juice, representing the blood of Christ, will you be reminded what he did for you? What you mean to him to go through such a sacrifice as this, to give you the full rights to his family name, and to give you the dignity and the purpose and the honor of being able to leave outside these doors and meet another person that does not know the greatness of who they are because they don't know the greatness of the one that made them. Let's go ahead and take communion together.